In January 2024, a federal court began releasing thousands of pages of sealed documents. Names, dates, testimonies, flight logs, financial records, documents that powerful people had spent years and millions of dollars in legal fees trying to keep hidden. The files related to one man, Jeffrey Epstein, a financier with no clear clients, a money manager with no transparent business, a man who somehow accumulated hundreds of millions of dollars, a private island, multiple mansions, and a private jet that carried some of the most powerful people on Earth. A man who was arrested twice for crimes against children, and who died in a federal jail cell in 2019 under circumstances that a staggering number of people, including forensic pathologists, still refuse to accept as straightforward suicide. The files were supposed to give us answers. Here is what they actually revealed, and why. Even now, the most important questions remain unanswered. To understand the Epstein files, you need to understand who Jeffrey Epstein actually was. Because on paper, he should not have existed. Epstein grew up in modest circumstances in Brooklyn. He dropped out of college. He worked briefly as a mathematics teacher at a prestigious Manhattan prep school. Then somehow, through a connection to a wealthy parent of one of his students, he landed a job at the investment bank Bear Stearns in the late 1970s. He had no finance degree, no formal qualifications. Within a few years, he was made a partner. Then he left, or was pushed out, depending on who you ask, and set up his own financial management firm. He called it J. Epstein and Company. Here is where it gets strange. For a man running a supposed billion-dollar money management operation, Epstein had almost no visible clients, no public track record, no regulatory filings that matched the scale of wealth he was accumulating. He claimed to only work with clients worth over $1 billion. He claimed his minimum was $1 billion. But almost none of those clients were ever publicly identified. What was publicly visible was the lifestyle. A Manhattan townhouse that was one of the largest private residences in New York City, a Palm Beach estate, a ranch in New Mexico, a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands he named Little St. James, and a Boeing 727, a large commercial aircraft used as a private jet. The question that investigators, journalists, and now courts have been asking for 2 decades is simple. Where did the money come from? The Epstein files released in 2024 were not one document. They were over 900 pages of depositions, emails, flight logs, and legal filings, mostly stemming from a civil lawsuit brought by Virginia Giuffre against Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's longtime associate and companion. That lawsuit was settled in 2017, but the underlying documents remained sealed. For years, lawyers, journalists, and survivors fought to have them released. When they finally were, here is what they contained. First, the flight logs. Epstein's private jets, particularly a Boeing 727 that became known in media coverage as the Lolita Express, carried a remarkable roster of passengers over many years. The logs confirmed the presence of numerous prominent individuals across multiple flights. Politicians, financiers, scientists, royalty. Some of these names were already known publicly. Others appeared for the first time. The presence of a name in a flight log does not by itself constitute evidence of wrongdoing. People fly on private jets. Epstein had a wide social circle, but the logs established something important. Epstein's access to the most powerful people on Earth was not accidental. It was cultivated, documented, and extensive. Second, the testimonies. The depositions from Epstein's longtime associate Ghislaine Maxwell, taken under oath, described in clinical detail the operational structure of what prosecutors would later characterize as a criminal network. Maxwell was convicted in 2021 on multiple counts, including sex trafficking of minors. Her testimony, and the testimony of other witnesses in the documents, described a system for recruiting vulnerable young women and girls, bringing them into Epstein's orbit, and providing them to Epstein and others for sexual purposes. Third, the named individuals. This is the part that generated the most coverage. The documents named numerous prominent men as having had contact with Epstein and in some cases being accused of sexual misconduct by victims. It is essential to be precise here. Being named in these documents means different things in different contexts. Some individuals were named in witness testimony as alleged participants in abuse. Others appeared in flight logs or visitor records. Others were mentioned in passing correspondence. Several individuals named in the documents issued denials. Some provided documented evidence contradicting the claims against them. What the documents established beyond dispute was the extraordinary breadth of Epstein's network, and the extent to which that network included people at the very highest levels of finance, politics, science, and royalty. The story of how Epstein avoided serious consequences for so long is in many ways more disturbing than the crimes themselves. In 2005, Palm Beach police received complaints about Epstein from the parents of a teenage girl. They investigated. They found evidence of a pattern of abuse involving dozens of victims. They referred the case to federal prosecutors. What happened next was extraordinary. Federal prosecutors, led by then U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta, negotiated a plea deal with Epstein's legal team. Under that deal, Epstein pleaded guilty to 2 state charges of soliciting prostitution. He served 13 months in a county jail, not a federal prison, and was permitted to leave the facility for work release for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. His federal crimes, which prosecutors had documented involving dozens of victims across multiple states, were effectively buried. The victims were not informed of the deal before it was signed, a violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act, as a federal judge later ruled. The deal also granted immunity to any potential co-conspirators. Read that again. Immunity to unnamed co-conspirators. The question of who those co-conspirators were, and whether that immunity clause was the entire point of the deal, has never been fully answered. When the details of that agreement became public in 2018 through reporting by the Miami Herald, the outrage was immediate. Alexander Acosta, by then serving as Secretary of Labor in the Trump administration, was forced to resign. In 2019, federal prosecutors in New York, a different jurisdiction, filed new charges against Epstein. Sex trafficking, conspiracy. Epstein was arrested, denied bail, placed in the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. 6 weeks later, he was dead. The official ruling was suicide by hanging. What surrounded that ruling was a cascade of irregularities. The jail's camera system outside his cell had malfunctioned. The 2 guards assigned to check on him overnight had both fallen asleep and reportedly falsified their monitoring logs. He had been inexplicably removed from a suicide watch he had been placed on weeks earlier following a previous incident. The New York City chief medical examiner ruled the death a suicide. A forensic pathologist hired by Epstein's brother, Dr. Michael Baden, one of the most prominent forensic experts in the United States, publicly stated that the physical evidence was more consistent with homicide than suicide. That conclusion has never been officially refuted or officially accepted. The guards were charged with falsifying records. Those charges were later dropped. Nobody has been held accountable for the circumstances of Jeffrey Epstein's death. The release of the 2024 documents produced headlines around the world. Some names already widely associated with Epstein appeared in new contexts with new detail. Prince Andrew, who had settled a civil lawsuit brought by Virginia Giuffre in 2022 for an undisclosed sum, appeared in multiple documents with specific accusations from Giuffre repeated under oath. Prince Andrew has consistently denied all accusations. Former U.S. President Bill Clinton was referenced in flight logs and documents. His office has consistently stated that Clinton had no knowledge of Epstein's crimes. Former U.S. President Donald Trump, who had publicly called Epstein a terrific guy in a 2002 magazine interview and has acknowledged knowing him, appeared in documents in various contexts. Trump has stated he fell out with Epstein years before the arrests. Numerous other financiers, academics, and public figures appeared in the documents in varying degrees of proximity to Epstein's operation. Here is the critical point. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, convicted. Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Of all the people named in depositions and legal filings as alleged participants, as opposed to merely acquaintances, not one has faced criminal prosecution. The immunity agreement from 2008, whose scope remains legally contested, may still be protecting some of them. That question is still moving through courts. The Epstein files tell 2 stories simultaneously. The first story is about one man and the crimes he committed. That story has a partial ending. Epstein is dead. Maxwell is imprisoned. Some measure of legal acknowledgement has occurred. The second story is about a system in which extreme wealth, political connections, and strategic generosity. Epstein donated to universities, cultivated relationships with scientists and politicians, can purchase something very close to immunity. A system in which a federal prosecutor can offer a sweetheart deal to a serial offender, bury the federal charges, grant immunity to unnamed co-conspirators, and violate the legal rights of dozens of victims, and face no criminal consequences for doing so. A system in which a man can die in federal custody under disputed circumstances, surrounded by institutional failures that have never been fully explained, and the investigation into that death produces no accountability whatsoever. The files did not close the Epstein story. They confirmed what many people already suspected, that the most important parts of it, who knew, who was protected, who made the decisions that allowed it to continue for decades, remained deliberately, carefully, and perhaps permanently obscured. So here is the question I want you to consider. If the documents exist, the convictions exist, and the evidence of a wider network exists, why has not one alleged co-conspirator faced a single criminal charge? Drop your answer in the comments, and share this with someone who thinks the full story has already been told, because the files were released. But the answers, the real answers, are still sealed. Subscribe. New video every week.